It started with a silence that didn't sit right. In Harlem, where jazz bled out of every window, cars rumbled like thunder through the streets, and the sidewalks pulsed with life. Quiet didn't mean peace. It meant something was wrong, something waiting. Bumpy Johnson stood stoically behind the glass of his penthouse at Lenox Terrace, surveying the streets like a captain watches troubled seas, the rhythm, the hustle off. For 3 days now, everything had stalled. Deals slowed, talk dried up, and the city held its breath. The source? A sudden void where Frank Lucas used to be loudest. Frank Lucas was many things, but quiet wasn't one of them. He was noise, flash, all swagger and chinchilla at the garden, riding in candy-painted cars that drew eyes up and down the block. Bumpy had never liked his style, too brash, too sloppy. But he'd tolerated the man, painfully, a pawn in a city where kings had to think 4 moves ahead. Now Frank was a ghost. No corner boys, no collectors, no late-night sightings. The silence was beginning to rot. "Zip," Bumpy said without moving his eyes from the glass. His voice was calm, stone solid. "Yeah, Bump." Zip sat nearby, swirling black coffee that had long gone cold, mirroring his boss's unease. "Get the car," Bumpy said. "We're going to Lucas's place." Zip's brow furrowed. He set the cup down, his jaw tightening. Cops are thick through his crews right now. If Frank skipped town, he's halfway down the strip in Vegas by now. Heading over there? That's asking for heat. "Frank doesn't clean up after himself," Bumpy replied, facing him now. "He leaves messes, and when those messes stink, it's this neighborhood that smells. I need to know if he's gone, or if he's about to blow up the block. I'm not going to rely on rumors. I want to see for myself." Bumpy didn't fear bullets or badges. He feared the mess that came when no one was in charge. Chaos wouldn't announce itself with sirens. It would crawl through cracks, reckless, hungry. And if Frank's crew was lost without a leash, Harlem could burn. The ride to Frank's place on 118th was quiet. The car flowed through traffic like something deadly beneath the calm, a black predator slinking through lesser fish. When they arrived, the block was too calm. No unmarked Chevys, no feds slamming doors, just stillness. The brownstone loomed with that obnoxious flair Frank was known for. Too much gold, too much flash, a shell of sudden wealth. The curtains closed tightly, insulated from the world outside. Bumpy stepped out, tugged his jacket into place, moving with that smooth authority that had made grown men fold without a word. Zip and 2 enforcers flanked him as they mounted the steps. Zip tested the door, locked but nothing extra. With practiced ease, he pulled tools from his coat and popped the lock open with a soft, metallic click. The front door creaked open. Inside, the air was stale, choked with leftover cologne and dying cigar smoke. But beneath that, something off, something sour, something hiding. Frank's place was just as gaudy as Bumpy remembered. Velvet couches no one sat in, chandeliers like frozen raindrops, walls screaming ego, a man burying insecurity under wealth. "Check the upstairs," Bumpy instructed the men. "See if there's anything, cash, clues, whatever, tells us what he ran from." They crept silently up the grand staircase. Bumpy and Zip moved through the first floor like ghosts. The kitchen carried signs of someone fleeing fast. A half-eaten steak stiff on a plate, drawers flung open, jewelry boxes cleared out. "Left in a hurry," Zip muttered, surveying the mess. "Took the stash and ran." Bumpy nodded slowly, but something deeper gnawed at his instincts. Frank had survived worse heat. This wasn't hustle, this was desperation, and something wasn't adding up. His steps drew him to the back of the house near the pantry, where that strange stink was stronger, earthy, wet, like something buried and forgotten. "Zip," Bumpy said quietly. "You hear that?" Zip paused, tilted his head. "No," he whispered back. "Exactly," Bumpy muttered. "Too damn quiet. A house this old should breathe, pipes knock, floorboards creak. But here, nothing." Then a whisper shattered it. A whimper, faint, wounded. Both men froze. The sound had come from behind the basement door. Bumpy approached the heavy oak thing, New scratches carved into the frame. The handle rattled but held firm. A crude padlock had been bolted onto its sloppy work, out of place amid the luxury. "Break it," Bumpy ordered. No hesitation. One of the musclemen stonked hard. The first kick cracked the frame. The second shattered it completely. The door swung wide with a crash. A mold-stained draft washed over them, thick with rot and something darker, fear. Bumpy covered his nose with a handkerchief. Eyes narrowed at the darkness yawning before him. "Light," he barked. Zip handed him a flashlight, heavy as a brick. Bumpy clicked it on and stepped into the dark. The moment his foot hit the wooden steps, the air grew damp and close, heavy with silence. He moved carefully, each step creaking like a warning. The basement was cold, unfinished, stone walls dripping with moisture, bones of the house laid bare. Dust floated in the beam of the flashlight like snow. Furniture under white sheets loomed like ghosts. When he swept the light across a far corner, it landed on something slumped. At first it looked like trash. Then it moved. He froze. It was a child, a girl, pale, small, curled against the wall like she was trying to vanish into it. Her eyes widened when the light hit her, horrified, hollow. She was chained to a pipe, her dress shredded and filthy, her face bruised, dirt-streaked, scared beyond words. For seconds, Bumpy didn't move. The street had taught him how to stare death down without blinking. But this slid a blade straight into his chest. His rage bloomed instantly, hot as a furnace, but so did sorrow. This wasn't just another body. This was a child, and someone who wore chinchilla jackets and drank cognac like water, had done this. He moved forward in long strides, calm in his voice but boiling beneath. "It's okay," he said gently, kneeling in the dirt as his suit soaked in grime. "You're safe now, baby girl." She flinched hard when he reached into his coat, expecting cruelty. Instead, he wrapped her in his jacket, warm and soft, blanketing her in security he didn't know she'd ever felt before. "I'm not going to touch you if you don't want me to," he whispered. "My name's Ellsworth, but people call me Bumpy. I'm going to get you out of here. That's a promise." The girl stayed frozen, shaking beneath the weight of that oversized jacket, her eyes flicking from Bumpy to the shadows behind him, expecting the monster. Bumpy didn't push. He let his presence settle soft and calm, like a steady beat beneath all the fear. She'd been expecting pain. Instead, she got warmth and the quiet promise of safety. Zip and the other men stood at the bottom of the stairs now, their eyes locked on the horror in the corner, their expressions hard. This was beyond street rules. This was evil. Bumpy turned toward Zip. His voice was low, but there was no mistaking the command in it. "Cut this chain." Zip nodded and vanished back into the darkness, heading for the boiler room. Bumpy turned back to the girl, carefully pulling a fresh handkerchief from his pocket. His hands hovered, not touching, waiting for permission. When she peeked through matted hair, he gently reached forward and wiped at the grime on her forehead. She flinched, then opened her eyes again. What she saw staring back at her wasn't threat. It was something she barely remembered, kindness. "No one's ever going to hurt you again," Bumpy murmured, and in that moment it wasn't a gangster talking. It was a man who had drawn a line in the dirt with his own blood. A moment later, Zip returned with a pair of bolt cutters. He handed them off without a word. The biggest enforcer knelt near the chain. "Turn your head, sweetheart," he told her gently. "It's gonna be loud." She pressed her face into Bumpy's chest, clutching his shirt in tiny fists. The enforcer strained, his muscles bulging before. Snap! The metal clanged against the floor. The girl's shoulder jerked, but she didn't scream. She just breathed, just barely. Without waiting, Bumpy scooped her into his arms like something sacred. She was weightless, frighteningly light. Hunger and fear had hollowed her frame, but that grip, her little hands wrapped in that suit jacket, tightened around Bumpy's collar like he was the only solid thing in the world. "Let's go," he said. "We're getting out of this hellhole." They climbed back into the light. He didn't look back at the broken lock or the luxury that hid monsters. He walked down the steps, out into the street, into the quiet that suddenly felt louder than ever. "Zip, drive," Bumpy ordered, slipping into the back seat with the girl still wrapped in his jacket. "Call Mai. Tell her to fill the tub and start warming up food. We've got a guest." As the Cadillac pulled away from the curb, Bumpy cradled the girl close, shielding her from the windows. Outside, Harlem looked the same as it always did, but he'd seen something now that would stain the pavement forever. She'd slipped into a stunned silence, her little breath catching now and then, like her body couldn't decide if it was safe to breathe yet. Bumpy looked down at her. His mind raced with one question: why? Why would Frank Lucas do something so senseless, so monstrous? He wasn't soft, sure. He was ruthless, greedy, arrogant, but this wasn't business. This was something else. In their line, violence was currency. But children, that crossed every line that made the devil look twice. There were certain walls that even criminals respected. Women, kids, those were off limits. To cross that line was to abandon the one sliver of humanity that separated men from monsters. Frank had crossed it, and Bumpy knew, deep in his bones, there could only be one response: retribution. The car rolled up to Lenox Terrace. The building stood tall and proud, order above chaos. Zip parked near the service entrance. Bumpy carried the girl in through the back, avoiding the doorman. Up the private elevator, cocooned in soft light and jazz humming through the vents, it felt like rising from the underworld. The doors opened into quiet warmth. Mai was already waiting, robe tied, hair swept back, the worry in her face clear as day. "Ellsworth, what is?" Her words caught in her throat when she saw him cradling a child against his chest. He stepped into the light. "Mai, take her," he said, and his voice cracked for the first time that night. She rushed forward, the mother in her rising to the surface. She didn't ask where the girl came from. She didn't need to. It was written all over her, the dirt, the chains, the dark around her eyes. "Oh, sugar," Mai whispered, arms outstretched. "Come here. Come to me." The girl hesitated, still holding Bumpy's shirt like a lifeline. But Mai's voice was honey and light, and her open arms washed away the last of her resistance. Slowly she slid from Bumpy's arms into Mai's warmth. Mai clutched the girl close while calling out orders to Zip, grab the towels from the hall closet. "She's getting a hot bath and a full belly." Bumpy stood there a second longer, watching the two of them disappear down the hall, Mai rubbing the girl's back and humming something soft and southern. As soon as the bathroom door clicked shut, something broke loose in Bumpy. The kindness fell away, replaced by something colder, harder, fury. Not just anger, but deep betrayal. Frank Lucas had spat in the face of everything Bumpy lived by. Bumpy stormed into the living room and poured himself a glass of water. His hand trembled, not from fear, but from trying to keep this fire sealed under skin. Zip entered behind him, face grim. He held out a folded newspaper and a page of scribbled notes. "Bumpy," he said, "the boys made some calls. We know who she is." Bumpy turned slowly, eyes sharp as blades. "That girl, her name's Emily. Emily Harrison." The name rang like a slow bell in Bumpy's mind. Familiar. He waited. "She's the daughter of Judge Harrison," Zip revealed. "The federal judge running that new task force, the one signed off on all the indictments." The glass in Bumpy's hand exploded. He hadn't thrown it, just squeezed until it shattered. Water, glass, blood slips down his fingers, but he didn't feel it, didn't care. "Harrison," he whispered. Now it all made sense. The sudden silence, the feds tightening their grip, the absence of actual raids. Frank hadn't just kidnapped a child. He'd taken a judge's daughter. He'd stolen a nuclear fuse and lit it with gasoline. The man hadn't just lost his mind. He'd turned every eye in the country on Harlem. Everyone in the neighborhood, corner boys, kids hopping the turnstiles, old women selling pies, now possible suspects. Any one of them could get crushed under the pressure of a mourning, vengeful federal judge. Frank thought he could use her to strike a deal, Zip explained hurriedly. Sent word, said she'd be returned if his indictments disappeared. but the cops got too close too fast, so he ran and left her. He left her, Bumpy said like the words were poison in his mouth. Left her like trash, chained, alone. He grabbed a towel and wrapped it around his bleeding hand. Where is he, Zip? We tracked his car north. He didn't hit an airport. Went to a farmhouse in Yonkers, probably laying low in a stash spot under his cousin's name. Thought he'd come back later to move the girl. Bumpy's voice dropped low. He's not coming back. Bumpy stood still for a moment, listening. Not to the room, but to the echoes of water running down the hallway, to the gospel hum of his wife's voice and the faint splash of the girl's bath. It brought back every reason this mattered. Every reason Frank had just become a problem that couldn't be left unsolved. He turned back to Zip. "Get the men," he said quietly, but with finality. "All of them. We're heading to Yonkers." Zip hesitated, eye twitching. "Bumpy, we gotta turn this girl over to the cops. We can't keep her here. And if we charge in after Frank while she's under our roof, we're not releasing her yet," Bumpy snapped. "If Frank finds out she's safe, he either vanishes for good or tries to throw this back on us. I can't give him that window. I deal with Frank. Then we go to the authorities." He reached up and tightened his tie. In the reflection of the mirror, he looked older, but not weaker. He saw the man who had survived bullets, betrayal, and backroom politics, and he saw something else, resolve. "Zip," he said, colder than the chill in Frank's basement. "Frank Lucas thinks he's clever, thinks he's hidden, but he made the one mistake that matters most." Zip looked over slightly. "And what's that?" "He forgot the code," Bumpy said. He touched the innocent. He glanced at his watch. Evening had settled over Harlem like velvet. "We roll in 10, he said. "I need to speak to my first." He walked down the hallway and tapped gently on the bathroom door. It cracked open. Steam billowed out, warm and soft. Mai's eyes peeked through, wide with concern. "How is she?" Bumpy asked low. "She's quiet," I whispered, "but she's safe. I threw out what she was wearing. Put her in one of my cotton shirts for now. She's eaten a little. Crackers mostly." "Good," Bumpy said. "Keep her close. Keep the blinds shut. Don't answer the phone. Don't open the door. Nobody gets in unless it's me or Zip." Mai stepped out a little more. "Where are you going?" "To fix this," Bumpy replied. "In Yonkers." She reached out, softly brushed a thumb over his cheek. Her voice trembled, but her touch didn't. "That little girl, she's broken, Ellsworth. Whoever did this, I know," Bumpy said, and turned before she could look too deep into the storm behind his eyes. Back in the living room, his men were checking weapons quietly, loading magazines with mechanical confidence. "No guns," Bumpy said. The room stopped. Even Zip looked confused. "Bump, I said no guns." Bumpy's voice held. Frank would surely be armed. Going in unarmed meant risking everything. But this wasn't about dominance through death. Bumpy didn't want him dead. Not yet. Death was release. Bumpy wanted him punished, taught, hunted. Going in cold? That's suicide, Zip warned. Bumpy shook his head. "Frank Lucas isn't dying tonight. That would be too easy. I need him alive. I need him to feel it." Zip blinked, then slowly nodded. He returned his pistol to the drawer and motioned to the others to do the same. They moved in silence. Bumpy turned for the door. The penthouse behind him, with all its warmth and safety, faded. What he walked into now wasn't revenge, it was judgment. The drive north was quiet in ways Harlem never was. As the city lights melted away in the rear view, dark trees rose to meet them, claws of bare branches scraping at the moonlight. The further they got, the further it felt from civilization. To most, this air might have felt cleaner, but to Bumpy, it smelled of hiding. Of secrets half buried and sins pretending to sleep. He sat in the back quietly, staring down the road like it owed him something. Zip drove in silence, letting the tires hum their violence into the void. Bumpy hadn't always believed in emotion. Feelings got people killed. But tonight's fury wasn't reckless. It was focused. It was a cold, patient burn, the kind only survival could hammer into iron. Zip finally broke the silence. "Turnoff's up ahead," he said. "Dirt road leads to the farmhouse, half a mile maybe. Remote." "Frank picked a smart place," Bumpy muttered. "Perfect for cowards." The gravel crunched beneath the Cadillac's tires as they veered off the road. Through the trees, a tired white farmhouse appeared, 2 stories sagging on slow rot, peeling paint whispering long-forgotten stories. But one light still burned downstairs, the only heartbeat left. Outside, parked neatly in the weeds, a Jaguar gleamed under the moonlight, ridiculous next to the cracked porch and broken fence. Frank had brought ego even in hiding. Bumpy's voice cut through the stillness. "Stop here. We walk from here." They slipped out of the vehicle, breath-forming clouds in the cold night air. Bumpy adjusted his cufflinks, the last mark of polish before the storm. He looked at the 2 enforcers flatly. "Take the back. If he runs, break his legs." They nodded and vanished into the dark. Bumpy and Zip didn't sneak. They walked up the drive like judgment always does, loud in its silence. Cheap music blared from inside. Jazz, messy and too loud, Frank's version of sophistication. Bumpy didn't knock. He raised his foot and drove it through the door just below the lock. The wood shattered beneath his heel, cracking wide open with the sound of a final warning. They stepped through into a shabby, half-lived-in mess. Takeout boxes, liquor bottles, cigarette stubs littered every surface. On the couch was Frank Lucas, mid-sip, chinchilla coat tossed over the sofa. He leapt up, spilled cognac all down his shirt. "Bumpy?" he stammered. He wasn't ready. The fear in his eyes said everything. 2 guards jolted up from chairs near the wall, going for weapons. "Don't," Zip growled. That one word twisted the air like a broken neck. They froze, looked at Bumpy, knew who really signed their checks, knew tonight wasn't their fight. "Get out," Bumpy said, eyes never leaving Frank. The guards didn't hesitate. Loyalty runs dry when paychecks are signed in fear. They vanished, leaving their boss exposed. Frank's entire persona crumbled. His mask, the one of cool, of control, fell apart under Bumpy's stare. "Listen," he began, stumbling over words like they were shards. "They're tearing Harlem apart, feds everywhere. I had to move." Bumpy stepped forward, voice like a growl. "Do you even know what you've done?" Frank raised his palms, sweat already dotting his temple. "Harrison was going to bury us. I had to get leverage. He was signing those indictments. I took his daughter to slow him down." "You took a child," Bumpy snapped, closing in. "I didn't hurt her," Frank shouted. The lie tasted awful even as he said it. "I didn't mean to. I was going to move her safely. Then the cops closed in. I had to leave." "You left her," Bumpy said, now inches from his face. "In the dark. In chains. While you fled to play house in the woods." Frank's voice cracked. "It was about the business. I did it for us, for the game. You think this is a game?" The slap came out of nowhere, not wild, not reactionary. It was precise, a judgment delivered by the open hand of a king tired of pretenders. Bumpy's palm struck the side of Frank's face with a raw crack, the sound reverberating through the farmhouse. It wasn't just skin meeting skin, it was a sentence passed. Frank's head jerked to the side. His feet tangled in the rug, and he crashed backward, knocking a table of bottles onto the floor. Cognac spilled next to him like a wasted offering. For a second, he just lay there, stunned. His hand shot up to his cheek, blood pooling from a split lip. His eyes darted upward, filled with disbelief. No one, even the police, had touched Frank Lucas like that in years. Bumpy wasn't finished. He stepped forward, grabbed the lapels of Frank's expensive jacket with both hands, and hauled him up like dead weight. Frank's feet barely graced the floorboards. Face to face, eye to eye. "What's my rule?" Bumpy roared. The question wasn't a question, it was a verdict in motion. The walls shook with the volume of his voice. Years of street-wrought authority surged through him and crashed into Frank's soul like a wave. Bumpy, wait, Frank stuttered, starting to crumble. Say it, Bumpy bellowed. Frank's soul shrank in real time. No, no women, he gasped, his voice pathetic. No children, Bumpy shouted, shoving Frank back. He collapsed onto the couch like trash tossed aside. You don't bring the innocent into the business between men, Bumpy said, voice trembling from rage. That's the rule. That's the one damn thing that keeps us from being total animals. But you used a 10-year-old girl as leverage. He stepped back, inhaled deeply, straightened his suit. You wanted to be a king, he said coldly. But you act like a scared dog with a crown. Kings don't hide behind children. They don't start fires they can't put out. They stand tall, face the heat. Frank was wiping blood from his lip, shame thick around him like smoke. What are you going to do? He asked, trembling. You gonna kill me? Bumpy stared at him for a long, loaded second. Then his lip curled slightly with disgust. Killing you, he said, voice like gravel. That'd be mercy, and you don't deserve mercy, Frank. With one pointed finger, Bumpy delivered his conditions like stone tablets. You're going to stay here. You won't leave. You won't call anyone. You'll sit in the dark and pray I clean up the mess you left behind. 3 days, Bumpy continued. That's what I need. 3 days. Frank blinked through the pain, and then, if the girl makes it to safety, if the heat dies down, you crawl back to Harlem and you stay in your damn place, Bumpy said. But if anything goes wrong, he leaned in, lowering his voice to something just short of a growl, if even a thread of this gets pinned on me or my people. He didn't finish the sentence. The weight of it hung in the room like a loaded gun. I'll come back, Bumpy promised, and the next time I won't be using my hand. And with that, Bumpy turned around, leaving Frank in the ruins, wounded, humiliated, bleeding into silence. Zip, Bumpy said. We're done here. They exited the house without another word. No need to slam the door. The message had been delivered louder than any door ever could. The ride back to Harlem was darker, quieter than the drive up. Not because the night was thicker, but because Bumpy's silence had weight. Judgment had been passed. Punishment left hanging like a sword over Frank's head. Back at Lenox Terrace, the mood could not have been more different. The penthouse glowed gently, lamps lit low, warmth curling through every room. Sanctuary. My Johnson moved like a mother lioness in her den, gentle but fierce in her purpose. She had turned the guest's bedroom into a healing place, all blinds drawn, soft towels, warm blankets, and food that steamed with comfort. Emily Harrison sat at the edge of the bed, clean now, hair brushed gently. Her skin, pale and peppered with freckles, was scrubbed free of basement grime. One of Mai's oversized t-shirts covered her like a gown. Her wool socks sagged adorably at her ankles. Mai held a spoon to her lips, coaxing her to eat warm soup, one slow sip at a time. Every twitch, every movement from the girl was guarded, like she was still bracing for pain. Trauma didn't drain away with hot water. It stuck, but with every bite, some small part of her began to return from the void. That's it, sugar, Mai cooed. Just a little more, baby. You need strength to grow strong again. The front door opened. Mai's body tensed. She wrapped her arm instinctively around Emily's shoulder, protective and quick. Emily froze, her body stiffened like a board. No worries, Mai whispered. It's just Ellsworth, the man who saved you. Bumpy walked into the room, presence softer than an hour ago. He had left Yonkers behind. The fury, the storm, the slap. He was someone else now. Someone still tired, still vengeful, but quieter. Emily recognized him instantly, the big man who found her in the dark, who gave her his coat, who didn't yell, not at her. Hi, she whispered. It was the first sound from her lips since the basement. Bumpy gently smiled, something genuine cutting through the lines of his face. You look better, he said. Did Mai take care of you? The girl nodded. She made soup. Bumpy smirked. Mai makes the best soup in Harlem. No competition. He crouched low so they were eye level. Emily, he said softly, I need to talk to you about something important. I have to take you home now. Her body tensed again. Panic crept into her expression. Tea to the bad place? No, baby, Bumpy said firmly. Not there. Never again. I want to take you to your daddy, to the police. Your father's been looking for you. Her eyes flickered. My daddy, he's a judge, she said quietly. I know, sweetheart, Bumpy said, and he loves you. He's scared, and he misses you something awful. He looked at me, nodded. She placed the bowl down slowly. There was heartbreak in her eyes. She didn't want to let the girl go either, but she understood. Each hour she's here, Bumpy told Zip, now standing in the doorway, is another chance someone spots us. Frank made this a federal mess. We can't drop her on a corner, can't bolt from a car. It has to be done right. You walk into a station with a kidnapped judge's daughter? Zip hissed. They won't care why. They'll bury you before you explain. Not if she tells them the truth, Bumpy said. He turned back to Emily. Emily, there'll be a lot of men. Loud, flashy, with guns, but I'll be right there. Can you be brave for 5 more minutes? She looked up, saw the same strength from that basement again in his eyes, and nodded. I can be brave. Bumpy took her hand and squeezed softly. Good girl, he whispered. Let's go. The 28th precinct looked like a battlefield, even at 3 in the morning. Brick and steel, worn by decades of tension, housed a frenzy of activity. Police cars double-parked, radios crackled with codes. Officers buzzed in and out, fueled by caffeine and adrenaline. The disappearance of Judge Harrison's daughter had turned this building into ground zero for a manhunt, and nerves were thin. Down the block, a black Cadillac slid quietly through the intersection. No swerving, no panic. It pulled up slowly right in front of the precinct under the unblinking eye of street lamps. The engine purred to a stop. Inside, a sergeant glanced up from the window. His brows furrowed. Something about that car, that Comet, didn't fit. Yo, he said, nudging a fellow officer. You see this? Zip got out first. He raised his hands in plain sight, fingers wide, body language peaceful. No sudden moves. He walked around the car to the back door. Bumpy Johnson stepped out slowly. Sharp suit, clean cut, calm face, and holding a small hand. Emily emerged behind him, lips tight, nerves bubbling under the surface. But she didn't break. Her grip on Bumpy's fingers held firm. Someone outside, probably a rookie, screamed. That's him! It's Johnson! He's got the girl! The precinct doors burst open. Officers flooded out like a breach in a dam. 30, maybe more. Guns drawn. Shouting layered over shouting. Hands up! On the ground! Release the girl! Bumpy didn't flinch. He stood solid, an unmovable wall shielding Emily with his body. If they fired, she'd be the first to fall. And still he didn't move. Don't shoot, Bumpy roared. I've got the child. She's safe. Let her go, Johnson, barked a hard-shelled detective, finger twitching over the trigger. Step back now. In that split second, Emily stepped forward, trembling. Stop it, she screamed, her voice cutting the madness like a siren. Don't shoot him. Stop it. The chaos wavered. Guns still raised, but movement froze. He saved me, she cried, tears finally breaking down her cheeks. He found me in the basement. The bad man locked me up and he found me. He saved me. That was the switch. Every officer stared. No one had an answer. Emily's voice, small, innocent, fearful, was undeniable. The picture they had painted of a criminal with a child hostage now distorted. Something didn't fit. Bumpy raised his chin a little, his voice firm. I am surrendering. I have brought her home. Captain Ali shoved through the pack of stunned officers, his face twisted with confusion, conflict, and buried disgust. Cuff him, he ordered. Bring the girl inside. 3 uniforms rushed forward. They didn't ask questions. They grabbed Bumpy, twisted his arms, slammed him against the hood of his own Cadillac, and cuffed him tight. He didn't resist. He just kept his eyes locked on Emily as a woman in uniform wrapped her in a blanket and led her up the station steps. Bumpy, she called out, her voice breaking. He nodded ever so slightly, letting her know he heard. He didn't say goodbye. Inside, the fluorescent buzz of the station offered no comfort. The hallway shrank as Bumpy was dragged through them and into the interrogation room, small, green, cold. He sat handcuffed to a metal chair as Captain Alley stood before him, pacing like a shark too big for the tank. "You're finished," Alley spat. "You understand that? That little federal princess in your arms. That's the electric chair, Johnson. Doesn't matter what she said out there." Bumpy sat still, jaw tight. "Oh, so what?" Alley sneered. "You rescued her? Now you're a hero? You think that gets you a badge?" "I didn't take her," Bumpy said evenly. "But I brought her back. You didn't." "I did." Ali slammed his palm on the table. "Then give me the name. Who took her? Who locked her up? Give me that, and maybe, I let this room have air tomorrow." Bumpy stared up, the calm in his voice now edged in iron. "If you knew me, you'd know I'm not a snitch. You want villains, look in your reports. I already handled mine." Ollie stepped close, eyes inches from Bumpy's. "This ain't over." Then came a knock. A young officer cracked the door. "Captain, Judge Harrison just walked in. He wants to speak to you." Ali grinned like Judgment Day had arrived. "Well now, you got problems, Johnson," he said. "The most powerful man in the courthouse is here, and you're wearing his daughter's trauma like a cologne." He exited with a flourish, leaving Bumpy to the stale silence. Minutes crawled. 10 passed. Then another 10. No cuffs were loosened, no verdict announced. When the door clicked open again, Bumpy turned his head slowly. It wasn't the U.S. Marshals, it was Captain Ali. And his face looked like he'd chewed glass and lost. He didn't talk this time. He just stepped forward, unlocked the cuff from Bumpy's wrist, and muttered, "Get up." Bumpy stood slowly, adjusting his suit sleeve with the quiet grace of a man used to war. "Transferred?" he asked, teeth barely parted. "You're being released," Ali bit out like the words burned. Bumpy blinked once. "The judge spoke to his daughter," Ali continued, jaw clenched. "She gave him the whole story, from basement to coat to handoff. Said you saved her life." As Bumpy stepped into the hallway, there he was, Judge Harrison, tall, formal, silver-haired with the grief of hell in his eyes and clinging to his leg, Emily. When she saw Bumpy, she let go of her father and walked forward timidly. The judge met Bumpy halfway. They were two men on opposite sides of a battlefield. One wore power in his title, the other in silence. The judge extended a hand, voice steady but thick. "She says you found her. Says you gave her your coat. Says she's alive because of you." "She shouldn't have been there," Bumpy said. "That's not how this world is supposed to work. Kids don't belong in it." The judge nodded slowly. "I know what you are, Mr. Johnson," he said, "and I know tomorrow you and I go back to the way things were. But tonight," Harrison paused, "tonight, you're the reason I have my child again." He held out his hand again. Bumpy took it. No tension, no flex, just the weight of separate worlds recognizing each other in one rare moment. The judge lowered his voice. "Earlier tonight, I had a lot of power. Now, I only have gratitude." "I don't need it," Bumpy said. "Just protect her. That's all." Judge Harrison turned to walk away, but added one final promise. "I spoke with the captain. No charges. Harlem's not your battlefield, not for this. We'll shift the spotlight elsewhere." Bumpy nodded. Emily looked back, waved. "Bye, Bunk. With Guy." "Goodbye, little one," he replied gently. Then he walked through that precinct lobby, every officer's stare burning across his back. But he walked free. Again. Outside, cold air met Bumpy like welcome silence. A station buzzed behind him, officers barking at one another, phones ringing. But he didn't look back. He exhaled once, slow and steady. Zip stood by the Cadillac, leaning on the hood, a lit cigarette between two fingers. He grinned. "I'll be damned," Zip said, shaking his head. "You walked out." Bumpy didn't smile. He just fixed his cuffs and slid into the passenger seat. "The rules matter, Zip," he said quietly. "Sometimes they're the only things that do. The car pulled away slowly, melting into Harlem's early morning quiet. The night was soft again. The threat had receded. But in Bumpy's mind, the storm was still there. Frank Lucas wasn't finished. Not even close. Back at Lenox Terrace, the mood had shifted to something bittersweet. The penthouse, once filled with tension, now hummed quietly like a place finalizing a long prayer. Mai had put the guest room back in order. The blankets folded, the towels washed, the soft smell of lavender lingered in the air, but the whole Emily Harrison left behind remained. Bumpy sat in the armchair, jacket off, blood drying beneath the bandage on his hand. Mai sat beside him, silent. Nothing needed saying. "She got home," he finally said. Mai nodded. "Good." For a minute they both watched the city through the window, the sharp lights of Harlem twinkling through dark. "You didn't kill him," Mai said finally. Bumpy shook his head once. "I thought about it. I really did." "Why didn't you?" He turned to her. "Because dead men don't learn. Frankie needs to live with the weight of what he did." He stood and walked to the sideboard, poured 2 glasses of water. "He left a kid, in chains," he said, "to burn for his crimes." He handed 1 glass to Mai. Their fingers touched for a second, a silent reminder that not even love could shield you from everything out there. "He may come back," Mai said softly. "He will." Later that night, while the city finally began to hum again, sirens distant, jazz crawling out of clubs, laughter bubbling near bodegas, Bumpy sat on the terrace alone, suit jacket back on, tie loosened. Zip stepped out, lighting another cigarette, the smoke curling past both their faces. "You thinking about Frank?" he asked. "I'm thinking about what kind of man deserves the titles we give them," Bumpy murmured. Zip sat beside him. After a moment he added, "Well, we still got Harlem. We still got her safe. That's worth something." "It is," Bumpy agreed. "But the thing is," he paused, his voice lowered like thunder gathering in clouds. "Frank's cracked." Zip raised an eyebrow. "You think he'll cross the line again?" "I think a man who can lock up a kid like that, nothing puts fear in him anymore. Not cops, not kings, nothing." Zip took a drag. "So he's a danger." Bumpy nodded. "And next time," Bumpy said slowly, purposefully, "I won't be using my hand." The words hung there, cold, final. The car rolled on to 116th. The sun was just starting to kiss the edges of Harlem's rooftops with gold. The streets were stretching awake. Shop owners slid metal grates back. Kids drifted toward school corners, and a horn could be heard blaring somewhere far off. Normal, noisy, familiar life. The clubs were opening. The streets were tuning up. Harlem was coming back alive. And high above it all, in that quiet penthouse, Bumpy Johnson watched. Still the king, still on the throne, watching the city, remembering who the real monsters were.